Hello everyone, this is Ali. Welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about one of the most commonly used Azure resources, which is ServiceBus. And I'm going to show you how we can install one. What is the difference when we are picking the base plan, basic plan, standard plan, premium plan. And also how we can create queues and topics, what topics mean, what queues mean, how we can create subscription, what are those filters or sort of like that. So I'm just going to be talking about general service bus and how we can install it in Azure. First of all, when you when you log in your Azure portal, you are going to see maybe nothing, depends on how many resources you have got, but I've cleared everything for you. So I'm just going to click create. So in home over here, for example, you can create the resources from here, or just you can click that create resource again. If you have a resource group already, if you get into that one, for example, let's say get into this one, and then if you click create, that means you're going to be able to create the resources directly within that resource group. But if you just click the create resource, while creating the create resource, it is going to ask you what sort of resource group it is going to be in, and you can pick one of the existing one, or you can create one. Imagine this is a marketplace for all the resources that you might have in Azure. I'm going to search for ServiceBus, and I will find the Azure services only. The ServiceBus. And I will find the service bus here, not service bus management, not the others, but the service bus. When you click that, it is going to be showing you the profile page. You can have general information about it, what sort of plan it just offers you, what sort of rating. So you may be able to comment. And I'm just going to say create. This is the subscription that I have. I'm going to create that one. This is where we start to configure our service bus resources or any other resources in Azure. Azure Portal is pretty straightforward actually. You can have the same thing for every other resources as well. So this is the installation, resource installation. Depending on the resource, of course, you may have different alternatives, different properties, but subscription and then the resource group is the same for everyone. So now I don't want to select any of those, but I will create something new. I'll call it resource group dash YouTube, for example. So now this is going to be my YouTube resource group. And instance detail, it is going to ask you give it a name. So if you see any domain over here just after any input, you may assume that the value over here will be a part of subdomain of the domain. So it has to be unique. For example, if I say demo here, it says, first of all, it needs to be 6-digit. Or let's say YouTube, let's put in YouTube. Now it is going to say, okay, youtube.servicebus.windows.net is available. But if it wasn't demo, if it wasn't YouTube, let's say demo 1, 2, so it is already taken. So not only it needs to be unique, but it needs to be unique globally, right? So I'm just going to say, let's say ServiceBus-YouTube. So this is going to be my namespace for that service bus. So I just add this one so I would know it is service bus. And the location, you can pick any of those to close to you. And there's 3 plans over here. We can see the plan details by clicking that browse available plans. So there are 3, as I just said. So the basic plan is almost for free. So you can see over here USD/1 million operation. So operation and the message count is different than each other. We may be talking about this later on. But it says for 1 million operation in a month, so 0.05, so 5 cents basically you will be paying by using this plan. It's because it is shared capacity. The message size is not huge and it doesn't allow you to have a topics, but it just says, okay, you can have only queues. It is simple for development purposes, for maybe learning purposes. You can pick one of the basics ones. So 5 cents for 1 million operation is huge. And on the other side, we have a standard. So it is again the shared capacity, which means there's a big server somewhere. You don't need to know what it is, but there's a big server somewhere, and then you're using it depending on how much load you put in that service bus. It is again, but it guarantees you some of those performance things. And over here, as you can see, we have topics, and it says 13 million operations monthly you can do with that one, and it is going to cost you £10, $10 USD for 13 million operations monthly. And this is estimated. It may be 9, it may be 11, but probably the average is 10. And I will be talking about the topics and queues later on. But again, this is shared capacity. In the premium plan, for example, you're going to see a huge jump on the price from 10 to 668. But this is dedicated capacity. So you have your own service now, you can imagine. You can just use it however you like. The message size now jump up from one message. I mean, the size of one message can have from 256 kilobyte to 100 megabytes. So if you have bigger size, larger messages, for example, you may be going with premium. And it's also topics, and then the queues, then the operations are free, because now you have your own service, a server. You're paying for the server and then the software that's running on that. It is not like per message, per operation, or per something. It is fixed price, but it's all yours. And also for production workload, it just gives you the recommendation. Let's say create another queue, or update this property, enable this one. ServiceBus itself is pretty complicated software, actually, a piece of software. We will be talking about some of those today. I'm just gonna go with standard. It's because for the demo purpose, it is enough. I want to show you the topics, so that's why I couldn't go with basic plan. And I don't want any geo replication, replication or something. So I'm just going to proceed. And then the next one is what sort of security layer you want to use. I'm just going to go with the default one, and connectivity method, public and private. Public means you can still have network configuration. This is totally separate topic. But basically means if you want to use that service bus from your own computer, you may have to enable that public access, or maybe private links or something like that. But again, this is another networking topic. But if you want your Azure resources that runs on the Azure already, only access to that service bus, then it may be you may be able to enable private access. It's because no one out of the Azure is going to be able to access that one. I'm just going to, so if you see premium plan, if you have the premium plan, so you can enable the private access, so you will basically go with publics. And then tags, let's leave it as it is, and then we are going to click the create. Now it is going to deploy first the resource group. It's because we've created the resource group from scratch. And then later on, it is going to create the service bus instance into that service resource group. And then we are going to have it. It is probably going to take about a minute. So I'll be here. There. I didn't even have to go back. So now we have it. So if you go to resources, what we have on the left-hand side, it is the same for all the other resources in Azure. And then the middle of the screen is, again, the same, almost the same stuff. So we have essentials. So whatever you need to know about the service bus in a first glance, it is here. So what sort of resource group, what resource group it is in, and what is its status, and what is the subscription location and subscription ID, and all the other stuff are in essentials. On the middle hand side, and we have requests and messages counts. Requests and messages are different things. And we have queues and then the topics. As we haven't created any queue or topics for now, and it is empty, but you can just have all the details from here. On the left-hand side, so if you go to entities, for example, you can find the queues and then the topics here. And if you go to monitor, again, insights preview, for example, you can see some detailed is statistic metrics. But if it is not good enough for you, so you can always go to metrics and find whatever metric that suits you. For example, how many completed messages we have got within that time period or something. So as we don't have queues and topic, let's create one. So I'm just going to click the create button. So over here, queue. I'm going to give it a name. Let's say Q1. What queue is basically what queue means in English. So some things comes in and then some things come out. in that purposes, so if we are using event bus, event broker, let's say, you have producers that produce some data, what we call it message, and sends it to the queue, and someone consumes that. So we have producers and then we have consumers. And while we are creating the queue, we have a couple of options. For example, maximum queue size. So every message has a limit, has a size, right? So you may be able to create 1 kilobyte size of message, but it can also be 100 megabytes if you're using premium plan. So this is how long that queue size will be. So 1 gigabyte, 5 gig, up to 5 gigabits, for example. You can pick one of them here. It is not individual message, but the total size. Let's say every message is 1 megabyte, and if your queue size is 1 gigabyte, that means you can have only 1024 messages. And then the max delivery count. So Azure Service Bus guarantees message delivery depending on how you configure it, but technically, yeah, it guarantees that. And then the maximum delivery count is if it delivers the message to the consumers, and if something happens on consumers, let's say there's an exception, right? So it was not able to process that message. So ServiceBus say, okay, there's something wrong. I sent the message, it receives, but didn't tell me that it is done with that message. So I'm just going to retry it and resend it. So this is basically the count, how many retry I should be doing. So unless you say, okay, I'm done with that message, it is going to send you 10 times the same message. And we have message time to leave as well. Let's say 14 days. If no one picks up that message for 14 days, it is going to just delete the message. And as I just said, it is very complicated system as a piece of software. But there's message logs as well. The logs is being used by the service bus itself, but you can also use it however you like. So you can log any message in any queue or topic. So no one else will be able to pick it up or just receive the same message again. So it is basically logging transaction log or distributed log, you may think. It logs one message and sends it to one consumer. So the same message wouldn't go to any other consumers. And we have enable auto delete on idle queue. So if queue itself is idle, you can delete the queue as well. So no message comes in for X amount of day, for example, 14 days, 30 days, and I don't know, however you like. If no message comes in that queue, so you can delete the queue itself. So you can have duplicate detection. You can create a message ID, and it is basically going to create an hash set for individual queue and use that message IDs to be able to determine if any message is duplicate or something. So you can have multiple options. So let's say create. So it is going to now create a queue for us. As I just said, once we have a queue, we have producer, we have consumers. In Azure Portal, if you get into one queue, for example, queue has its own dedicated page by saying what is the properties. So you can see all the properties. What is the maximum message size? What is the current size, for example? What is the time to leave? Is auto delete enabled or something? Or what about the lock duration? And again, the request message for the specific queue for Q1, for example. If you go to ServiceBus Explorer, you can see the messages here through that portal. As we don't have any message and we are able to send any message. So when I say send message, it is just going to pop up that panel. I can set up that content type, what sort of message I want to send and what is its type. Let's say text message plain and test message to Q1 from the portal, let's say. So this is the message I'm sending. Each message, so the message itself, as you can see, this is message body. Each message has different properties like content type, like message body. And there are some other, for example, if you go to broker properties, you can have predefined properties for each message, like correlation ID, message ID, reply to, label or subject or to, and set time to leave. So the message can have a different time to leave apart from the queue itself. If you set a private, if you set any messages time to leave, it is going to override the queue's time to leave. and you can set a scheduled enqueue time. So you can put it into queue, but say it should be consumed only when this time comes, right? So these are the predefined properties, but you can also have custom properties. You can add any other properties, and you can access that properties from the producer, from the consumer side. When the consumer consumes it, it can check all the predefined or custom properties. Just going to delete it right now, and I just click send. So now I see I have one message in that queue. That ladder is another queue for all the queues or any subscriptions. That does mean there was something wrong with one message, and I don't know what to do with that. So maybe it was in the queue, right? And your consumers consumed the message but didn't say I'm done with that, so it didn't complete the message. So for example, ServiceBus sends it to 10 times. It's basically a retry, but after 10 times it doesn't know what to do. So the message cannot be in the queue. It's because it may be processed by somehow but not completed yet. So when the ServiceBus itself doesn't know what to do, or maybe by user reading the message but doesn't know what to do, it sends them to that ladder queue manually or just programmatically. So as we have it in the queue, and if I say peak from start, I'm just going to be able to see the whatever it is. So I have message body, I have message properties. If I set any other properties, I would be able to see it over here. But like, let's say this is the message ID, this is the delivery count. It is not delivered yet because. So the message, I can see all the messages here. So we have two different types of viewing the message. First, we can peek it. So if I peek it, that means I'm just going to look at it, but I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm just curious about the data or properties. I'm just viewing it, so read only. But also, if you change the peek mode to receive mode, that means now you are taking out the message from that queue. So if I receive the message, now it says why, how you would like to do that. So you can use peek lock. So that means you're just going to again pick it, and you're now locking it, so no one else will be able to pick it after that. Or you can receive and delete. So you can say I want to receive 10 messages from that queue, and I want to delete them. So if we had 10 messages in that queue, that means I'm reading all the messages, and it is just going to download all the messages through my portal, through my browser. And once I receive those, it will be deleted from the queue, as you just see. But it was not the case for peeking, right? So now I received and delete the message. So it is not there. So I only see it here. And this is basically the topic, the queues. Any queue might have more than one consumers, and the Azure itself is going to balance these loads. If you have, let's say, one producer, two consumers, and when you produce a message, it is just going to be picked up for the first consumers. It is not going to be duplicated and sent all the consumers. It's just going to be balance the loads. Let's say it's going to be calling one each other. So first message goes to first consumer, and then the second message goes to second consumer. If we go back to our service bus itself again, and if we switch back to topics, now this is where, if you're familiar with RabbitMQ, so you know it's got exchanges, all right? So this is basically it. So it is not the queue, but it is exchange. So it is not one queue, but one queue with many subscribers, if we imagine. If we click the topic is one big queue that each topic might have more than one subscriptions. Let me briefly talk about that one. So I'm just going to say topic 1. It is again the same size, same properties over here. I'm not going to get into details. But when you create any topic, and when you get into that topic, let's say, now we have something different than the queue itself. Now we have subscription. Subscription means it is not consumers. If it's because in the queue, when you set a message, and if you have multiple consumers, it is just going to split that message. So every time only one consumer will pick up the message. But on the topic side, if you have one topic and multiple subscribers, when you send the message to topic directly, it is going to duplicate the message for all the subscriptions, right? So that means you're duplicating the same message and distributing it, broadcasting it to all the subscribers. This is the difference between topics and queues, basically. In the queue, if you have multiple consumers, one message will be going only one consumer. But on the subscription topic level, the same message will be distributed through all the subscribers. All the subscribers is going to get the same message. So let's say create subscription. So sub 1. You can think every subscription is now a queue. It's because you can also consume the message from the subscription. And you can say it's because it's a message. So you can say it uses almost the same properties that we have for topics. I'm just going to say, okay, this is the sub 1, so subscription 1. I'm going to create another one, subscription 2, for example. Okay, now I'm in the topic, as you can see. Now we have in the down below, we have 2 subscriptions. If you go back to ServiceBus here again, you will see the subscriptions. You can pick up the subscriptions from here and you can see its details. So let's now send a message to the topic itself. So I'm going to get into that one and ServiceBus Explorer. I'm going to say send message. So again, maybe text message, maybe JSON, maybe XML, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say this is a message for topic 1 to be distributed to all these subs, right? So the same properties again, broker properties, custom properties. When I click send, now it distributed that message to all the subscription. I can get into sub 1, for example. You can see there's one message. If I pick it, and you'll see the data. If I want to view the second subscription, the same again, it will have the same message again. If you go back to overview, for example, you can see it here. So message count 1, active message 1, that there's 0, blah, blah, blah. It's actively waiting in that subscription queue. With the topic, you can also create some custom filters. Maybe you just want to send a message into that topic. That topic has multiple subscription, but you only want to have some subscription to have the same message. So you don't want to distribute it to all the subscriptions. And as you can see, now we have the requests and messages just going to come in. So I had messages here for incoming request, successful request, and no subscription and no server error. So we can see some statistic though. So you may want to create some filters for your subscriptions. For example, if you get into sub 1, right? So we have filters. That means it is not going to receive all the messages from that topic, but it is going to be picky. So what sort of filters we can have? So when you click add the filters, we can have SQL sort of filters, or that's a correlation filters. Correlation filters use system or custom properties. For example, you can say if to what is that, sub 1, for example, right? If reply to is sub 1, if message ID is sub 1, if label, for example, let's say label, right? So label must be sub 1 for sub 1 to receive the message, right? As long as the label is sub 1, it is going to get it. So let's name it sub 1 label filter, right? So now save changes. So in that topic, for example, that topic 1, I have only 2 subscription. One of them has a filter and the other one doesn't. So if I send a message again, let's say I'm in the topic ServiceBus send message. I'm now sending a new message to topic 1. I didn't set label or something, right? So label, if label was sub1, it was going to go there. So I didn't set that one. So now I'm sending this. If I get to sub1, sub1 has one message. It's because it didn't get that message. It is still having the old message, if you see over here, to be distributed all. Why? The message property, the label property, wasn't sub1. But if we go to sub2, for example, we are going to see two messages. It gets all of those. Let's try it again. So topic, send message. Now this time, a new message with label property set, right? So now I'm going to set the label property to sub1. What do you think is going to happen? Sub1 is obviously going to get that, but is sub2 going to get that? So let's see, send sub1. So now it has two messages, and the second one is the new message with the label property set. So you can see message properties and subject is this. If we go to sub2, it is always going to get that. It's because it doesn't check any properties. It gets all the messages from that one. So any subscription might have its own sort of filters. One of the filter type was SQL-like. For example, I could say sys.to, right? 2 equal like sub2. I think it should work. Is it sub2 sys.to? Okay, in that case, let's say sub2 SQL filter. In that case, subscription 2 is gonna get the message as long as the to property is sub2. Let's change it. Let's save it. And probably didn't like the type, so sys.to equal, let's say, maybe something like that. I think it is single quote. Sub2. Let's say sub2. Let me copy sub2 SQL filter. Oops, save changes. Now it is. No, it is not again. No, it is. Okay, yeah, it's okay. Now let me send a message to topic again. So ServiceBus send message. So from now on, message for sub2 only, right? So now the broker properties 2 is gonna be sub2 send. Now it should only go to sub2. Let's say, yes, we have 4 messages in sub queue, which one of which is the last one. Did sub1 get that? No, it is still having only the other one. As you can see, you can have different filters for even your custom properties or predefined property. As I just said, it is pretty complicated, but pretty straightforward ServiceBus piece of application. If you want to learn more about this ServiceBus or any other resource group or any other resource in Azure, please let me know in the comment section below. And also you can email me always, salihkantekin@gmail.com. So you can find me over there too. You can find me in LinkedIn or anywhere else. You can visit my personal blog, salihkantekin.com. And if you have any questions, again, let's meet in the comment section below. Until the next video, happy coding.